My oldest possession from childhood is a small collection of action figures. Not Han Solo or Chewbacca, but creatures from a different galaxy far, far away. The Universal monster movies of the 1930s. Action figure was a euphemism for doll, because back in the 1960s, early 70s, that's what they were, 12-inch dolls, just the same as your little sister's Barbie collection. So in order to conform with gender roles, G.I. Joe was branded an action figure. The size mold was broken by Kenner in 1977, when they released their mini action figures, based off the movie Star Wars. The reason for shrinking them down was practical. Initially, Kenner was less interested in the figures. What they really wanted to produce were vehicles and playsets based on the spaceships in Star Wars. But if they were scaled to the then standard 12-inch figures, the vehicles would be far too big and expensive. Shrinking the toys down solved the problem. Very quickly, the phenomenal success of the Star Wars mini action figures made the 3 3/4-inch scale the new industry standard, and all the action figure lines followed suit. Star Trek, The Lone Ranger, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Buck Rogers, Indiana Jones, Clash of the Titans, even G.I. Joe was miniaturized. During the mini action figure boom, they were marketing all kinds of weird stuff to kids. They made figures from shows like Dukes of Hazzard and Chips. That made sense. They involved fast cars and the police. I can even get behind the idea of MASH action figures. That was the army, right? But things had clearly gone too far by the time Love Boat figures hit the shelves. Luckily, the madness didn't end until Remco unveiled the crown jewel of my childhood toy collection. A series of figures based on the classic Universal monster movies. These came out in 1980, nearly 50 years after the movie's original releases, but they couldn't have made my 5-year-old self happier. I had just discovered these old movies. In those days, before Netflix or VCRs, the only way to see movies at home was on TV. Living close to the US border, our rabbit-ear TV could pick up the station in Buffalo, WUTV, which was showing Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman one summer on the 8 o'clock movie. The best thing was they ran the previous night's movie the following day at 5 o'clock, so if you really liked it, you could see it twice. I was in love with these movies, so it was the greatest thing in the world when my father started returning home from his trips to the States with monster action figures. There was the Phantom of the Opera, the Wolfman, Dracula, the Mummy and the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and Frankenstein. Very early, I picked Frankenstein as my favorite monster. This is the original figure I've had since 1982. The face and hands used to have a special paint that glowed in the dark. Since they were the same scale, my monsters mixed right in with my Star Wars figures.
He can't get in here!
Better than Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein was Han Solo meets Frankenstein. Or Princess Leia is seduced by Dracula. Chewbacca and the Wolfman joined forces, wreaking havoc, because they were kindred spirits. Not even Darth Vader could fend off their attacks. Some of these figures are better than others. Like, I love the stance the Wolfman takes. All hunched over on his cloven feet, he looks animated, ready to lunge. Unlike the Star Wars figures that stood rigidly on flat feet, if you were lucky. Dracula had a badass red and black cape, and blood dripping from his fangs. But why were his palms facing up? He should have had hands for grabbing victims to devour their blood, but instead he looks like some sad sack saying, "Why me?" Now, the Phantom of the Opera had similar hands. They make sense on him, since he's supposed to be this tragic, sad character, but Dracula was suave and confident. And speaking of the Phantom, I think they missed the boat by not giving him a little mask to take off. Maybe they thought it would be a choking hazard, But the Star Wars figures came with all kinds of tiny accessories a child could easily swallow or stick up their nose. I guess Remco just cheaped out. Hey, it's weird that the proof of purchase on the back of the Phantom says it's Frankenstein. And why did they need a proof of purchase anyway? With Star Wars, there was always offers for a free figure if you sent in a few proofs of purchases, but I never saw such an offer on the monster toys. In 1997, Burger King gave away a series of similar monster figures. I think it was to help promote Universal re-releasing all the classic movies on VHS around that time. Buying a Kids Club meal got you a free Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, or Creature from the Black Lagoon. They were bulkier than the originals, but nowhere near as bad as the new steroid-proportioned Star Wars figures that came out around the same time. Sadly, Remco only put out one series of these 6 figures. I can only imagine what treasures could have been included in a second set. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Bride of Frankenstein, Igor, The Fly. Not a Universal movie, sure, but who wouldn't want a human with a fly head and hands? But as long as I've got my Frankenstein monster, I'm happy. He'll always kick ass against the USS Starfleet, G.I. Joe, and the Empire.